Deutsche Umwelthilfe Döngüsel Ekonomi Proje Müdürü Sayın Henriette Schneider'i Almanya'da tek yön ve doldurulabilir doldurma sistemleriyle ilgili sunumunu yapmak üzere kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm going to present you the two deposit systems we have in Germany for the collection of beverage packaging, and a bit of the history and the differences and the overall experience, and also the environmental benefits that we see with it. So let me start with a quick introduction of our organization. We are a non-profit, a non-governmental organization, and we work in the fields of environment and consumer protection. And as a consumer protection organization, we are also entitled to take direct legal action if consumer rights are violated. So the organization was founded in 1975 in the south of Germany at Lake Constance. You can see it here in the picture below. And at the moment, we have 110 employees, 300,000 active supporters, and we have our head offices in Berlin and Radolfzell, and we have also some regional offices in Köthen, Erfurt, and Hanover. We work at regional level and at national level, but also at EU level, in the fields of circular economy, which is the department I work in, but also nature conservation, energy, renewable energies, grid expansion, and some projects about environmental education, and also, as I said, consumer protection. In our department, we have a lot of projects that focus on beverage packaging and the collection of beverage packaging. So one might wonder, why is this such an important topic for us, and why do we think it should be for everyone, actually? The answer is very simple. In Germany, at least, beverage packaging amount for 10% of the entire packaging waste, and packaging for spirits, wine, and sparkling wine are not even included in that, so the number would be even higher. And another very important reason is, of course, littering. Plastic bottles and cans are among the most littered items, I think, everywhere where there is no DRS in place. In fact, there was even a study carried out by the EU Commission that demonstrated that single-use plastic bottles are among the most found single-use plastic items on EU beaches. And I think this is very concerning. Another reason to focus on DRS for beverage packaging is that it has a very high material value, and if it's collected separately, it enables a really high quality recycling. And this in turn boosts the recycling industry and can create jobs. So let me quickly give you an overview over the systems we have in Germany for the collection of beverage packaging. So the most environmentally friendly system is the one that you see on the left. It's our collection system, DRS system for refillables. The one in the middle is the deposit for single-use beverage packaging, which is much more environmentally friendly and also more efficient, a lot more efficient than the green dot system you see on the very right. So we have all the three systems in place, but most beverage packaging in Germany is collected via one of the DRS systems. So this is a quick comparison of the two DRS systems, which is a very important slide because you're gonna understand the presentation better if you pay attention to this. So we have the DRS for refillables, which is voluntary. Because refillables have had a very long-standing tradition in Germany. They've just always been there. And the refillable bottles have a deposit amount attached to them, but it's not regulated by the law. It's basically voluntary. And this is because fillers who are giving out refillable bottles, they obviously want their bottles back. So what they're going to do is automatically attach a deposit amount to them. You can see a variety of bottles. Those are all refillable bottles. And most of them are glass bottles, but the one on the right is a PET refillable bottle. So I think this is also a very important point when we talk about plastics, what you also said. It's not about the material. For us, at least, it's about the most efficient use of this material. And if we can have a PET refillable bottle, then that's great. Then we don't need to ban plastic bottles at all, because those bottles can have multiple circulations in a very efficient way. So the filling sizes range, as you can see here, from 0.2 to 1 liter, and the deposit amount attached to them is usually €8 for beer and 8 euro cents for beer and 15 euro cents for the water, juices and soft drinks. Those bottles can be reused quite a number of times. So the glass bottles can be reused over 50 times, and the PET bottles are usually refilled around 15 times. We're gonna see later why that is, why there is a difference. And also, those bottles are usually distributed in crates, and the crates can be reused 100 to 150 times. And then, obviously, everything also goes into recycling. Why is the system so efficient? I think that's the key for a good refillable bottle DRS system is standardized bottles. So in Germany, we have a number of standardized pool bottles that you can see here. And those bottles can be used by a variety of fillers, which means that they can be transported to the closest filling facility, and then they can be distributed from there. And that significantly shortens transport distances, which makes the system so efficient. So I think that is really a takeaway, a key component of a refillable system. And here you can see a bit more how it works. Sorry, here you can see it. So the labels can be washed off. So the brands can put on their individual labels, and then when the bottles are washed, those labels are washed off, and the bottles can be refilled, and the label of whatever new company can be put on the bottle. And here, as I already mentioned, we also have PET refillable bottles. Here you can see the filling process of those PET bottles. So you can see it's a very clean process. The bottles get washed. It doesn't use a lot of water in the most efficient, it doesn't use a lot of water at all, but in the most efficient washing facilities, it's just 150 milliliters per bottle. So that's really not a lot, and then they get refilled. For us as an environmental organization, reuse is also a very important topic because of EU waste legislation, where we have something called the waste hierarchy. And the waste hierarchy sets the priorities for waste management in the EU. We have waste prevention as the top priority. And then the second step is reuse. And this is this is still more environmentally friendly than recycling. And that's why we as an environmental organization think that we should focus much more our efforts on reuse. This is how the refillable system works in Germany. You can see that the fillers fill the bottles, then they get distributed by beverage wholesalers, and then they get distributed to retail, then consumers purchase them after consumption, bring them back to the stores, and beverage wholesale then transports the bottles back to the cleaning and the fillers. And in each step, the deposit is paid on this right side, and in each step on the left side of the circle, the deposit is returned. As I said, they can be refilled up to 50 times or even over 50 times. So one of those 0.75 liter glass bottles can replace 40 single-use bottles of 1 liter. And that obviously also leads to a very great saving potential in CO2 emissions. So if we calculate with two scenarios, and we have one scenario where 80% of the beverage containers are single-use, and the other scenario where 80% are refillables, we can actually save 1.26 million tons of CO2. And just to give you a bit of an understanding what that means in numbers, so for the transport sector, it means 560,000 less cars on the road per year. And in the energy sector, it's the annual energy savings that could be achieved by replacing 39 million incandescent light bulbs with energy-saving lamps. So that is a lot. And that obviously also has an influence on climate protection. As you can see here, this is for water bottles. And there have been several studies carried out in Germany that show that along the whole life cycle, water from refillable bottles only causes 50% of the CO2 emission compared to water from single-use bottles. And in the beer sector, this also applies for the comparison of refillable bottles versus single-use bottles, but also for the comparison of refillable bottles versus cans. So this would be a great scenario for us in Germany to have 80% refillables. Unfortunately, we don't. We were pretty close in the 90s, but then Aldi and Lidl, the big discounters, started selling high quantities of single-use of beverages in single-use packaging, and they sold them at very low prices. Those low prices are refinanced by the other products those discounters sell. So actually, all the competitors can't really compete. And that is how they took away a lot of market share, especially in the mineral water sector, from beverage wholesalers, from other retailers. And those retailers had been mainly filling in refillables. And that is why we really saw a decline, a very, very strong decline in our refillable quota in Germany. So this led to a mechanism because we actually had it set in the law that we needed a certain amount of refillables. And so it was 70% that was set in our packaging ordinance that we should reach. And when this number fell below, when the refillables quota fell below that, there was a regulation mechanism triggered that led to the introduction of a DRS on single-use beverage packaging. And I'm gonna explain you why. So a very important objective of the DRS on single-use beverage packaging was a steering effect towards refillables, because legislators thought that if consumers had to pay deposit on both beverage packaging types, then they would maybe choose to buy refillables because both had to be returned. And there were several other reasons that this was expected to lead to a steering effect towards refillables, which are much more environmentally friendly. Other reasons were that we had a massive littering problem in Germany. We had 3 billion littered single-use bottles and cans per year in Germany. So this was another objective of the DRS on single-use. And then, obviously, as we already heard, to boost collection and recycling of single-use beverage containers, and also to enable a bottle-to-bottle recycling or closed-loop recycling that hadn't been possible before. So the deposit system on single-use beverage packaging, it applies for plastic, glass, and metal single-use beverage packaging, but we don't really have so much single-use glass within this deposit system in Germany because beer is just mostly filled in refillable bottles. There is a fixed deposit amount in this system of 25 cents, and so beer, water, soft drinks, and alcoholic mixed drinks are included in the systems, and the filling sizes reach from 0.1 to 3 liters. Juice, unfortunately, in our opinion, unfortunately, is not included in the system, and we think that was a huge mistake, but we're going to talk about that a bit later. Here you can see the logo that you find on the bottles. So this is the logo for consumers to know that they can return this bottle and get 25 cents back. This has a special color also, so that when it's taken back, it shines in UV light. This reduces significant. I mean, basically there is no fraud problem, but this is a security measure. Then there is a EAN code that you can see on the bottles and cans for single use. And maybe let's talk about the take back very quickly. So most big shops have reverse vending machines. So the take back in those shops functions automatically. And in the smaller shops, they mostly do manual take back. I mean, in the very small shops, like corner shops, for example, but they don't have to take back a large quantity of bottles. So it works for them very well because most consumers just bring the bottles back to big supermarkets during their weekly shopping. And there was also relief for small shops included in the law, so that shops below 200 square meters, everything above 200 square meters, the shops have to take back all the materials they sell, so metal, glass, and plastic, so all single-use containers from those materials. But small shops have the rule that they only have to take back the brands that they sell, which means that for them it's really a relief of the burden, and they really don't have an issue with too many containers that they have to take back. So now let's look at how this system works. Basically, consumers buy containers in retail and pay a deposit to retail. Retail pays a deposit to the fillers and producers, and then when consumers bring the containers back, they get a deposit back, and also the retailers get a deposit back from a clearing house that regulates this whole, the clearing of the system. So now we're going to look at the results of the DRS for single-use beverage packaging. Did it have the results that we wanted to achieve in Germany? First, the steering effect. In the beer segment, we can say that there definitely has been a steering effect towards refillable. Today we have 82% refillables in the beer segment, but that number was lower in 2002, before the introduction of the DRS. I think it was at 67%. And then within 1 year, with the introduction of the DRS, it increased to 89%. So this steering effect in the beer segment has definitely been achieved. In the mineral water segment, we can say that the DRS has slowed down the decline of refillables, but couldn't, unfortunately, stop it because of this really devastating price strategy from the discounters. And for consumers, it's just too cheap to buy water in single-use bottles at the big discounters. So the steering effect, it could not be fully achieved, but at least the decline has been slowed down. The same applies for soft drinks. And this is proven that this DRS for single use had an effect on mineral water and soft drinks, is proven by the number that we have for juices, because we don't have DRS for juices on single-use beverage containers. And this is what happens when you don't have that. You get a refillable quota that is now at only 10%. So this maybe I'm going to skip. So we're still trying to achieve, and we as an environmental organization are still campaigning to actually increase our refillables share to 70% again, but there are additional measures needed for that, and a DRS is not enough for that in Germany. The second problem that we wanted to solve is the littering problem. I'm sure you're all familiar with this problem. This is how it looked like in Germany, as some of you might not think, but this is how it looked like before the introduction of the DRS. We had a problem of 3 billion cans and single-use plastic bottles annually that were littered in our cities, in our environment. And this is a before and after of the introduction of the DRS. Here you can see before, this is a park really close to our office. And you can see lots of littered cans and some bottles also, and after it looks just clean. So this anti-littering effect was really effective, and littering could basically be eliminated. Now let's look at what effect it had on the collection and recycling rates and the bottle-to-bottle recycling compared to the green dot system that we had before. So the deposit system for single-use beverage packaging has a collection rate of 98.5%, as opposed to the packaging that is collected in the yellow bin, so the green dot system in Germany, which only has a collection rate of 50%. And the recycling rate is at 97 to 98% with the DRS, whereas the recycling rate in the green dot system is only at 45%. And those are the official numbers. So it is actually, we as an environmental organization know that only 17% of the packaging waste that is collected in the yellow bin is actually recycled in Germany. So the closed loop recycling, as we heard before, is obviously also a really great benefit of those DRS systems, because the material that is collected has a really high value. And in the EU, only with a collection in the DRS, a bottle-to-bottle recycling or a closed loop recycling is possible. And that can only be seen by the prices that those materials can be sold at. So clear PT can be sold from DRS can be sold at 400 to 430 euros per ton, whereas from the green dot system, it can only be sold at 250 to 290 euros per ton. So the DRS on single-use beverage packaging did have a significant effect on environmental protection, because it causes less incineration, less air pollution, less climate damage, and less resource consumption. So we would say it's an absolute success story for Germany. And yeah, it's also very cost efficient, because, for example, you don't have the sorting costs and you can sell the materials at high prices. And also you don't have to remove the public waste, the littered waste. And an additional point is that there is still a lot of money that can be earned with unredeemed deposits. So we're going to see that later, how much actually can be earned by deposits that are not given out again, because the containers end up in the wrong waste bins and are not returned through the DRS. So yeah, as I said, it's overall positive. The results are overall very, very positive. And we say that there are only winners with the DRS on single use in Germany. The politicians are really proud of the high collection and recycling rates that could be achieved through that. Retailers have, so yeah, as was already mentioned, in Germany, retailers keep the materials that are returned to them, so they can sell them at very high prices because they are very high quality materials. This is different in Germany from other systems, as was already mentioned. And retailers are also really pleased that this is perceived by consumers as a service, and it also strengthens their bond with consumers, because 60 to 80% of consumers bring the bottles and cans back to the shop where they bought them. So it makes consumers come back to the stores, and many retailers also put the machines in the back of the stores so that it leads the customers through the store before returning their bottles. And the packaging producers are obviously happy because they have a high quality material that they can use for the manufacturing of new containers. And the citizens in Germany have also a very positive opinion on the DRS, because it's very convenient, and littering of those containers has basically been eliminated, and that was a huge problem up to 2002. Just to give you a more in-depth impression of what the industry actually thinks about this, or the retailers also of single-use beverage packaging. So this is BGVZ, is an association where, for example, Lidl and Aldi are members, the big discounters. And they say that they will support the deposit systems because the customers and the producers appreciate it. The deposit system generates high recycling rates for PET and metal, and littering is almost eliminated. And they can earn a lot of money with it. For example, the German retailer Rewe made 12 million euro net profit in 2009 just from material revenues and the unredeemed deposits. And as I said, it is really perceived as a service from consumers, so it strengthens the bond between consumers and retailers. So the takeaways from this, what we would recommend is to avoid exceptions, like I said, for juices, keep juices in the systems. We would also recommend to include beverage cartons in the system and take back everywhere. That means every retailer, every shop that sells beverage packaging should be obliged to take it back. And for the smaller shops, maybe like in Germany, that they only have to take back the brands that they sell. Like this, it makes it very convenient for consumers without any island solution. So it's very uncomplicated. You can just bring it back with your weekly shopping. Then it's important to have a clear and obvious labeling. And then we would also recommend for bigger shops, for supermarkets, to have reverse vending machines because they make the process so much more convenient. And yeah, in my role as the expert for an environment organization, it is also important for me to mention that single-use DRS builds up a structure for the very efficient collection of refillable beverage packaging. So this can be a first step towards even more environmentally friendly refillable beverage packaging. And this, again, a summary. So we see the system for refillables as the most environmentally friendly system. Then the deposit system for single use is more environmentally friendly, much more environmentally friendly than the green dot system, and also much more efficient. And so this is the ranking that we would make. I'm going to skip those are not in the right order, but I'm going to skip those anyway. Just one point I wanted to mention, because it was mentioned that there were concerns that beverage sales would go down with an introduction of the DRS. We saw that this is absolutely nothing to do with it. So in Germany, we've seen an increase in, for example, bottled water from the 90s. And the biggest increase was actually here after the introduction of the DRS system. So this caused an even bigger increase in mineral water sales. So basically, there's no reason to fear that sales would go down. And those I'm going to skip. I'm happy to answer your questions later on this. And thank you for your attention.